I'm Mark Williams for Pickuptrucks.com, and we're here at Canibbe Ranch, where we've had the opportunity to drive the brand new 2014 Chevy Silverado for the first time. We have V6 versions, V8 versions, LTs, LTZs, Z71s. We even saw a high country. But we got to tow, we got to carry payload, and we got to do some off-roading. Here are our impressions. From the very first moment we step inside this interior, that's the biggest thing that hits me right off the bat. The steering wheel feel and the seats provide a hugely comfortable interior that wasn't really there before and might be class leading in the segment. Once you get the truck out on the road, that's where it also gets impressive. The steering, the geometry, the frame, the suspension, all of those things seem to be working together incredibly well to give it much better handling, more dynamic feel to the driver in the steering wheel as you go through some of the twisties, or even if you romp on the throttle, the response is there. It's smart. This is a computer that wants to give you the best fuel economy possible if you're going to drive that way. The engines themselves are pretty impressive. The 4.3 is obviously an old architecture, but the updated new engine, 285 horsepower, 305 foot-pounds of torque, very impressive. Definitely the most impressive torque numbers in the segment. Over 300 foot-pounds of torque is amazing for a V6. We had a chance to tow with it, I think about a 5,000-pound trailer. It worked hard. You could tell it was working hard, but it was working very comfortably as well. The 5.3, we got the numbers on that, 355 horsepower, 383 foot-pounds of torque on that. Very comfortable towing. I think we had a 6,000-pound trailer and an 8,500-pound trailer, and it did incredibly well. Hit the tow haul mode. It seems very smart about when to hold those gears, climbing grades, and has a very, very intelligent hill descent, kind of a downshifting capability in the software program that can detect whether or not you want to stay in a higher gear going down a grade. We had a chance to drive a lot of different versions, but the 5.3 in particular allowed us to drive the furthest distance on the drive routes that they gave us, which meant that we were able to gauge a little bit of fuel economy, and over the probably 50 or 60 miles that we were able to run. And over that stretch, we got about 22.5 miles per gallon. We weren't trying to do any hyper miling. So for us, with the 5.3 and the cylinder deactivation that lets us know with the little icon in the dash that it's in V4 mode, it was pretty impressive how long that V4 mode would hold before it kicked back into V8 mode. So it really does give you that benefit of 4 cylinders getting fuel for when you need it in those light load situations, and then only when it needs to does it kick in those remaining 4 cylinders to actually go into V8 mode. And we saw that even when we were towing, it would kick into 4-cylinder mode, and even when we were in tow haul mode, that wouldn't cut it out, which is the way it used to in the old GM pickup trucks, but it would still actually hold that gear, and if it was comfortable to be in 4-cylinder mode, it would still do that. We really like the opportunity we got to take some of the Z71 package Silverados out on a pretty decent off-road course. It allowed us to get out of auto and go into 4-low a little bit, climbing over some rocks. We went down some pretty steep hills. We were able to try out the hill descent control, which is brand new for the Silverado. It also has a hill hold mode. Regardless of what kind of trailer or what kind of weight you're towing, it'll hold it for 3 or 4 seconds on a hill, so you have time to take your foot off the brake and get onto the throttle. And it also works in reverse as well too. If you happen to be climbing up a hill and have to hit the brakes, it'll hold it as long as you stay in reverse for 3 seconds, and then until you hit the throttle, then it'll release it and you'll be able to climb back up that hill. The off-road course in particular was pretty amazing. Nothing spectacularly new or different. Still the same transfer case. You still have the auto 4-wheel drive mode where you can set it and forget it. Also has 4 high where it locks the front and rear drive shafts, as well as 4 low for the serious situations where you need to climb rocks with a lot of torque. Suspension seemed to feel pretty well. Monotube shocks for the Z71 package gives it a nice firm and stiff ride on pavement, and also gave it plenty of firm control when we were going at higher speeds over some of the rougher terrain on the off-road course as well. If I had to talk about the things that I didn't like, they'd be pretty nitpicky things, and they mostly have to do with the interior. I like to see what gear I'm in, regardless of whether I'm in drive or in manual. Manual I can see. We still have the column shifter, but in order to see what gear you're in, you've got to go into manual, and then you've got to physically go up or down in order to know what gear you're going into. Sometimes that's a good thing. Generally speaking, I would like to see what gear I'm in, regardless of whether in drive or in manual mode. Secondly, maybe this column shifter, especially with how cool some of this center stack looks and how nice the console is on these new packages, both in the LT, the LTZ, the Z71, and especially the High Country. I think I'd like to see some kind of auto stick or something that both Ram and Ford have done a pretty good job with. So there you have it, a very impressive improvement for the Chevy Silverado. Not a perfect truck, but it is going to give the competition a lot of things to worry about. If you want to hear more about what we thought about this truck, go to Pickuptrucks.com to read the full story. I'm Mark Williams for Pickuptrucks.com, and we're here at Canibbe Ranch, where we've had the opportunity to drive the brand new 2014 Chevy Silverado for the first time. We have V6 versions, V8 versions, LTs, LTZs, Z71s. We even saw a High Country. But we got to tow, we got to carry payload, and we got to do some off-roading. Here are our impressions. From the very first moment we step inside this interior, that's the biggest thing that hits me right off the bat. The steering wheel feel and the seats provide a hugely comfortable interior that wasn't really there before and might be class leading in the segment. Once you get the truck out on the road, that's where it also gets impressive. The steering, the geometry, the frame, the suspension, all of those things seem to be working together incredibly well to give it much better handling, more dynamic feel to the drive.